Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Hello, welcome back. How was the Easter holiday in lockdown? What did you get up to? It was kind of a weird one, wasn't it? Anyway, we are delighted to be back. Welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a Tuesday, Top Hit Tuesday, the lockdown edition. From our homes to the comfort of your homes, you will hear from Barry Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Paz, Chris, and Alois Bunjira. My name is Sean Tafirenyika. I'm the producer for ZiFM Sport. I hope you're staying at home and keeping safe. Tonight we'll talk cricket. Zimbabwe's most influential cricketers of the modern era. We'll hear about the impact of Andy Flower, Heath Streak, Henry Olonga, and Tatenda Taibu. They made an impact on this game that we love so much. What are your thoughts on the influence and the impact of Flower, of Streak, Olonga, and even Tiba? What kind of impact did they have on cricket in this country? Hit us up. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. While we're zoning in on cricket, we'll also give you our staple on a Tuesday, the Formula One report, probably brought to you by Zimoko. Then updates from the beautiful game, and we'll also go around the world in 60, and we'll have a local sports news roundup. In fact, let's begin there on the home front, where we catch up with local sports news from Barry.
The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Your local sports news roundup starts with cricket news, where Zimbabwe cricket have decided to keep alive the tour of Afghanistan scheduled for June despite the global paralysis of the sport caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The Chevrons are supposed to host the Afghans for 5 T20 internationals. However, there's still uncertainty as the country is currently under a 21-day lockdown to stem the coronavirus outbreak. Zimbabwe, who rarely have a packed calendar, as has been the case this year, was supposed to host Ireland and Malawi this month, Afghanistan, and then tour Australia between June and July. On to volleyball news, where Zimbabwe Volleyball Association, the ZVA, has adopted an indoor training program for players during the lockdown. Sports personalities throughout the world have had to come up with innovative ways of keeping themselves in the best shape during the global lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. ZVA said it was taking advantage of a wide online reach to ensure that players keep fit in the safety of their homes. The ZVA Facebook timeline has been active educating the public about the virus. It is also running a lockdown competition where players post their lockdown exercises from their homes. Let's wrap it up with news of an administrative nature, where the government, through the Ministry of Youth, Sport, Art and Recreation, has commended the sporting fraternity for adhering to the national lockdown guidelines meant to contain the spread of the deadly coronavirus pandemic. The country is currently in a 21-day lockdown as authorities have moved to minimize the effects of the scourge, which has since claimed over 103,000 people worldwide. All sporting activities have been put on hold, with athletes confined to indoor training as their coaches make online follow-ups. That's your local sports news roundup.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z.
Now, there's no doubt that cricket is one of the most popular sports in this country. It has brought a lot of us pride over the years and some agony even in recent times. We were a strong force, especially in the 80s, the 90s, and even in the early 2000s. And during that time, there was a generation of players that shaped the game. Players who had a massive impact because of their outstanding performances and even their leadership qualities as well. I'm talking about Andy Flower out of Vinona High School. Heath Streak out of Falcon College, Henry Olonga from Plumtree, where he was actually head boy, and Tatenda Tayubu from my old school, Churchill Boys High School, the Bulldogs. Now, these esteemed gentlemen did a lot for Zimbabwe cricket in the modern era. Now, Mark Pause will bowl the first over, where he will talk about Andy Flower. You see what I did there? First over, cricket pun. Anyway, and then we also hear from Mike Madoda, who will talk about Heath Streak.
Zimbabwe's most influential cricketers of the modern era, and you've got to say that Andy Flower is right up there. Born on the 28th of April 1968, he was always going to be a top cricketer. He was born in Cape Town and went to Oriole Boys High School here in Zimbabwe, and then to Vanona High School, where he competed his upper six. He played most of his cricket alongside his younger brother Grant, who I actually schooled with at St George's College. Now, having known Andy and both Grant for a very long time growing up, it was inevitable that they would both go on to be great cricketers. But Andy, in particular, I mean, he was just a phenomenal athlete. They were a sporty family. Their dad, Bill, was incidentally my cricket coach at school, and the standards that he set us just showed what he expected of his own boys if they were going to make it as cricketers. Fitness was top of their agenda, let alone spending time in the nets or doing whatever it was, cricket skills. Fitness was something that the Flowers took to the next level. I remember going on tour with Zimbabwe Cricket in '98 as the press manager, and we would be on our coach, and we would be traveling, and next minute in the middle of the floor on the bus there would be Andy and Grant Flower doing press-ups and sit-ups. They were always had to keep busy, depending on where the ground was to the hotel that we were staying at. They would say to the coach then, Dave Houghton, you know what, we'll run to the ground this morning just to take off my kit, just so we can be ready for the game. I mean, they were phenomenal. I mean, I remember watching them in domestic cricket here at the end of days play in at Old Georgians. They would stop playing, and at the end of the day, and they would run around the field 20 times while the rest of the guys were packing up and sitting down and relaxing. So it just showed that they were always going to be phenomenal cricketers. And they just Andy's skill just showed that he had what it was going to take to be in international cricket and reach the heights of world number one. During his career. I mean, he made his international debut in a one-day international against Sri Lanka in New Plymouth in New Zealand at the '92 World Cup, and from there on you could just see that he had it. I mean, he made 550 runs in a test series against India. Who will ever forget that in 2001? This tally actually came in just 4 innings, and he was only dismissed twice. Remember that? Just dismissed twice. He's one of the few players to score a century on ODI debut as well. Towards the end of his career, Flower achieved international recognition, as we all know, when he and teammate Henry Olonga wore black armbands during the 2003 Cricket World Cup match against Namibia to protest against Robert Mugabe's policies. One thing you've got to understand with Andy Flower, he was a very principled person, and this act obviously led to pressure from Zimbabwe's government and Flower's retirement from Zimbabwe cricket, and that basically ended his international career, and he went off to England. And as we all know, what he's achieved since giving up cricket as a player. But Flower, when I say principled, he was exceptionally principled. He was one of the guys that actually came out and said the commitment to racial integration within the national team and Zimbabwe cricket was itself never in doubt. And in the late 1990s, I remember he was playing for Old Georgians, and he came through to the club and said, guys, I've got nothing against Old Georgians, but I'm going to join the black club, Old Winstonians, which is now changed to Takashinga. And because as a white cricketer, I think we need to show through our actions rather than words that we are serious about developing black involvement in our sport. And he did that, and he went on there, and we all know where Tatenda Taibu came from. If you read Tatenda Taibu's autobiography, Keeper of Faith, Andy Flower actually writes the foreword in that book, and it just shows what kind of a person he was. He was a very, very principled person, but he was an exceptional cricketer as well. If you go back to some of his rankings, he's the only Zimbabwean in the ICC top 100 all-time Test batting rankings at number 31 in November 2013, putting him in the company of the likes of Brian Lara, who was ranked 23, Sachin Tendulkar, Steve Waugh, and Rahul Dravid. His aggregate score of 341 in the first Test, I remember, against South Africa in 2001, is the second highest ever by a batsman on the losing side. So his record, everything about Andy Flower could go on and tell you that he was a great cricketer. He scored 6,786 runs at an average of 35.34, which I think could have been okay, but when I'm saying he could have played a lot more cricket, they weren't playing as much cricket as they are playing now. But certainly for me, he goes down in the record books as one of the greatest cricketers of all time here in Zimbabwe.
Z. Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z. Really fascinating topic, this one. And I've got to say, for me, the man known as Heath Streak, full name Heath Hilton Streak, is without a doubt one of only a handful of world-class cricketers that we have ever produced as Zimbabwe. I can hear a lot of people say, handful? I mean, what do you mean? And the answer is yes. And by definition, a world-class meaning a player who can walk into any other team in the world. And Heath Streak was that. At his peak, he could have walked into any team in the world. Born on the 16th of March 1974, Heath Streak grew up in Matabeleland, where he was affectionately known as Zulu by the locals, a name that stuck for the rest of his career. Fluent in Sindebele, which endeared himself to the locals, Streak was educated at Falcon College in Esgodini on the outskirts of Bulawayo, where he distinguished himself as one of the leading schoolboy sportsmen in Zimbabwe across several disciplines. Rugby was certainly an option for the beefy lad. He played fullback for Zimbabwe. He was quick, he was strong, and he could have chosen that as a career, but cricket is the direction that he chose to go, and he wouldn't disappoint. Statistically, he is the best bowler to have played for Zimbabwe. He is the only Zimbabwe bowler to have taken over 100 Test wickets, and one of only 4 Zimbabwean bowlers to have taken over 100 one-day international wickets. Streak made his Test debut in Zimbabwe's tour of Pakistan in 1993-1994, making his mark by taking 8 wickets in the second Test at Rawalpindi. Streak won the Player of the Series award after taking 22 wickets at an average of 13.54 in that series. He then bettered his best bowling figures in 1995 when Pakistan toured Zimbabwe, taking 6 for 90 in the first Test at Harare Sports Club. He would go on to be named Man of the Series a couple more times in his career, both in 2001, first in Zimbabwe's tour of England and then in Bangladesh's tour of Zimbabwe. So he was a really good bowler, world-class bowler. You know, I love the way that he ran in. Every ball was an effort ball, and so and not just effort, there was also plenty of skill. Heath Streak, he was able to get purchased not just here in Zimbabwe at Harare Sports Club, but he was also able to go and play in England. And that's why he was able to have a sterling county cricket career, because he was able to derive and extract joy from those decks out in England. But more than just being a bowler, Heath Streak was also a decent batsman and a big hitter. He was an entertainer. People loved to see Heath Streak go out and bat because they knew he would certainly swing the willow. And along with Andy Flower, this one is of course for stats boffins out there, Heath Streak actually set the record for the highest 7th wicket partnership for Zimbabwe in one-day internationals. That's 130 in a match versus England in 2001. He was also a leader, Heath Streak. captaining Zimbabwe in the years 2000 to 2004, and he distinguished himself playing in 3 World Cups in 1996 on the subcontinent, 1999 when Zimbabwe made it to the Super Sixes with some really good victories over South Africa and India, and then in 2003 where Zimbabwe co-hosted with South Africa and Kenya, Zimbabwe playing its games here in Zimbabwe at Harare Sports Club as well as in Bulawayo at Queens. He's been a fantastic cricketer for Zimbabwe. In fact, he was a fantastic cricketer for Zimbabwe. No doubt an inspiration that here in Zimbabwe we could produce cricketers that could live with the best, compete with the best, and make it into that world-class top drawer. Heath Streak certainly was one of those cricketers, an inspiration for many cricketers that were to follow in his footsteps in the years to come.
Now, Andy Flower and Heath Streak were world class. Their impact can be seen by how they inspired a generation of local cricketers. Players wanted to bat like Andy Flower and bowl like Heath Streak. Flower had that famous reverse sweep. Is there anyone in the world who mastered and executed that shot to perfection? And with Heath Streak, his fluid bowling motion, with that left arm pointing towards the wicket and then unleashing a delivery that wreaked havoc on opposition batsmen. Personally, my favorite moments was when he uprooted that middle stump. Now, Paul's talked about the tremendous work ethic of Flower, how principled he was, and Mike mentioned the class and the consistency that made Streak world class, and oftentimes his fighting spirit shone through during his captaincy. I mean, for Streak, in a recent interview, he said his focus is now on developing the game. He wants to see a bigger provincial one-day setup and better marketing of the game. He recognizes the need for youngsters to see their leading players in action to stimulate their interest in the game, and that's why he set up the Heath Streak Cricket Academy. He continues to be influential. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. What are your thoughts on Andy Flower and Heath Streak? Now remember, we've got our power play updates from the beautiful game and also around the world in 60. But coming up next is the Formula One report, proudly brought to you by Zimbabwe.
From sunny Melbourne to the streets of Monaco, the deserts of Bahrain to the jungles of Brazil, get up to speed on the Formula One report. The Formula One report is proudly brought to you by Zimbabwe, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, specialized service for special brands.
As you might already know, Zimbabwe is the home of Mitsubishi vehicles in Zimbabwe, and today I've got great news for you because the all-new Mitsubishi ASX is now available. Now, the ASX combines all the benefits of a compact SUV, that's spacious interior, roomy boot and extra height, with the maneuverability and fuel efficiency of a smaller car. With great style, performance, safety, and the latest technology features, plus plenty of space for friends, family, and cargo, the new ASX won't cramp your style. With a dramatic new face featuring prominently new designed LED headlamps with built-in LED daytime running lamps and LED fog lamps, an expressive grille and strong body lines, you'll enjoy looking at your ASX almost as much as driving it. The ASX's full-length panoramic roof lets you and your passengers enjoy uninterrupted views of the sky and stars. The ASX has an impressive 2-liter MyVic petrol engine. The new generation engine provides fuel economy of an average of 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers with a 63-liter fuel tank. The fuel efficiency translates to more than 800 kilometers of travel on a single tank. Now, that's certainly impressive. Furthermore, your loved ones are in the best hands with a 7-airbag system and packed with a range of advanced passive and active safety technologies for increased safety for every seat. All of this and more for an affordable price, including 3 years or 100,000 kilometers warranty and a first fee service with Zimbabwe at 10,000 kilometers. Stay tuned to find out more.
The French Grand Prix is set to be the next Formula One event to be postponed as a result of the coronavirus crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron said in a televised address to the nation yesterday that restrictions on public events would continue until mid-July. France's round of the Formula One Championship is due to be held at the Circuit Paul Ricard near Marseille on the 28th of June. Macron said France's lockdown would be extended until the 11th of May, after which schools would progressively reopen while bars, restaurants and cinemas would stay shut.
All right, let's continue our look at Mitsubishi vehicles available from Zimbabwe. Now, decades of off-road expertise and cutting-edge technology come together in the Pajero Sport, fusing elegance, space and safety for urban agility and off-road excitement. It is the versatile family four-wheel drive built to help you escape the everyday and ignite your spirit of adventure. The Pajero Sport features the all-new 2.4-litre Mivec diesel engine with 8-speed automatic transmission and a Super Select 2 four-wheel drive system, which allows you to select your driving mode with the turning of a dial at your fingertips. It also features hill descent control, which controls your speed, and your braking down steep inclines, which allows you to concentrate on steering without having to manually apply the brakes. The Pajero Sport can seat up to 7 adults in comfort and features the latest technology and safety systems. Come and check it out, this all new and exciting model, at our showroom as soon as the lockdown is over. Zimbabwe will be available to let you see this vehicle.
And Alfa Romeo driver Antonio Giovinazzi has backed plans to begin the Formula One season without spectators, starting the 2020 campaign, which has had 9 races called off so far. Behind closed doors was just one of the options Ross Brawn confirmed was on the table during his appearance on Vodcast last week. Giovinazzi has lived in virtual isolation in his Monaco apartment since his return from Melbourne, separated from his family and girlfriend in Italy. He's cooked, cleaned and done his own laundry and only worked with his fitness conditioner via video conference. Finally, the bold, all-new Triton double cab is engineered beyond tough. Whether you need the practicality of a dedicated workhorse or the luxury and versatility of an SUV, the Triton's combination of super responsive, smooth and powerful performance, silky transmission and passenger features is exactly what you need. The completely redesigned Mitsubishi Triton features the new 2.4L Mivec diesel engine, making it extremely fuel efficient. It also features Mitsubishi's unique Super Select 2 four-wheel drive system, as well as hill descent control, anti-lock braking system ABS, electronic brake force distribution EBD, rear diff lock, hill start assist, dusk sensing headlamps, reverse parking camera and infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, making driving this vehicle off-road or around town an absolute pleasure. The all-new Mitsubishi Triton is one of the most competitively priced double cabs on the market, and one that must most certainly not be missed.
The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimbabwe, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, specialized service for special brands.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Tonight we're talking about local cricket featuring the most influential cricketers of the modern era right here at home. We heard about Andy Flower and Heath Streak. And now let's turn our attention to some of the black cricket players who were pioneers of the game in the country. Henry Olonga and Tatenda Taibu. For that, let's hear from Barry Manandi.
Now, the history of Zimbabwe cricket would not be complete without telling the story of 2 barrier breakers, without whom it would be impossible to talk about the integration of cricket in Zimbabwe, who, not through a quota system necessarily, but sheer will, determination and raw talent, drew the lines and crafted the cricket blueprint in this country. I speak obviously of Henry Olonga and Tatenda Taibu, who in different generations of the game in this country navigated some treacherous waters to stand up and be hailed among the greats to play the game in Zimbabwe. Now, a great place to start is at the beginning, I suppose. Zimbabwe cricket had been a sport dominated by white people, especially in the national team level. In schoolboy cricket and to a lesser degree in club cricket scene, you could find a few black faces, but it was tough to get into the chevron setup without being absolutely special, and these 2 gentlemen certainly were. Enter Henry Olonga, a player whose ability with bat and ball led him to being one of the brightest prospects in schoolboy cricket in the country at the time, playing for his high school first team, Plumtree School, as an all-rounder. It is said that in one match against a touring school from the United Kingdom called Brighton College, he scored 103 runs and took 8 wickets for just 15 runs. Absolutely astounding. This was testament to the special talent that Zimbabwe had unearthed. Little surprise then that in January 1995, Henry Olonga was called up to become the youngest player to play for the Zimbabwe Test side at the age of just 18 years, 212 days. He was to make his debut against Pakistan, and although that test match will be remembered as being the first test victory for Zimbabwe, thanks largely to a double century from Grant Flower, along with centuries from his brother Andy, as well as Guy Whittle, guaranteeing the country an innings and 64-run victory, Henry Olonga made his international bow in that test match. He took the wicket of Saeed Anwar for 8 in his first over, but he was no-balled once for chucking. An eventful debut it was indeed. Thanks to some assistance from Australian great Dennis Lilly at his bowling academy in Australia, Olonga sorted those teething issues out and became one of the fastest bowlers in world cricket. Tragically, with that pace also came a bit of inaccuracy, but when he was on, he was one of the best. Who can forget that amazing last over in the second game of our 1999 World Cup in England, where he single-handedly cleaned up the last 3 wickets of the Indians in a dramatic spell of death bowling that rivals anything we've seen in the game. India needed a mere 7 runs to win the match and had 3 wickets and 7 overs in hand. It looked a lost cause until Olonga was handed the ball. With his second delivery, he claimed the resilient scalp of Robin Singh, which left India still in control and could have literally coasted to victory. Henry had different ideas. He was to concede 3 runs before taking wickets with his 5th and 6th deliveries and win the match for Zimbabwe by a mere 3 runs. Such was the character of the man, a fighter always with a never say die spirit that catapulted him to the top of the national game. He was to be selected for the next World Cup in 2003, which was being hosted in South Africa, Kenya, and of course in Zimbabwe. And it is at this tournament where his career was set to prematurely end. A black armband protest by he and his friend Andy Flower to protest what they called the death of democracy in Zimbabwe would see them both call time on their careers and go into exile, with treason charges hanging over their heads. Henry was to later marry Australian PE teacher Tara Reid in 2004, publish his autobiography Blood, Sweat and Treason in July 2010, and more recently participate in the Australian edition of the TV program The Voice, going as far as the battle rounds. No one could ever take away from the barrier-breaking exploits of Henry Olonga, the first black cricketer to represent Zimbabwe, whose exit paved the way for a new crop of cricketers, which itself was led by the diminutive frame of Tatenda Taibu. Popularly known as Tiba, Tatenda Taibu experienced everything possible, good and bad, in a very short period of time. Playing for the national side at the age of 18, being appointed the vice captain at the age of 19, becoming the youngest captain at the age of 21, announcing his retirement at the age of 22, and then coming back to the fold at the age of 24. What a dramatic career. He made his debut for Zimbabwe's national team in 2001, aged just 18. In 2003, he was appointed vice captain to Heath Streak on the team's tour of England, and that was in the immediate aftermath of that player rebellion we spoke about with Henry Olonga and Andy Flower. And he was appointed national captain in April 2004, making him the youngest test captain in history then, until Rashid Khan of Afghanistan claimed the record in 2019. Rashid Khan was 8 days younger than Taibu when he captained Afghanistan against Bangladesh. The young Taibu's solid abilities were talked about by many in Zimbabwe, and the selectors had a close eye on him at Churchill High School. Before he could play his first domestic match, he was asked to be on standby for no less than Andy Flower, when he was injured during Zimbabwe's tour in 1999 and the year 2000. For his first-class debut, a comedy of errors occurred when Taibu was about to play his first match for Mashonaland. He apparently turned up at the wrong ground, the wrong venue, and thus his debut was put on hold. Taibu had a torrid start to his one-day international career, the lowest point coming during a tri-series in Sri Lanka featuring the West Indies. In 3 matches, he was dismissed for a duck, but he showed a good temperament with the gloves as the wicketkeeper. His test debut was equally torrid, and it took Taibu some years to get used to the international scene. His first bright moment came in the 2003 World Cup, where he played some crucial knocks lower down the order and was effective behind the wickets. He took a 2-year break from Zimbabwe in 2005 and to 2007, where he played a season as the captain of Namibia and another season for Cape Cobras in South Africa. He made his return to the Zimbabwe side in a series against India A in July 2007, registering a century. The following month, Zimbabwe hosted South Africa for a 3-game one-day international series, and in the final game, Taibu scored a career-best 107 not out. It was the first one-day international century for a Zimbabwean against South Africa. Things were beginning to turn for Tiba and showing the potential that everyone could see he clearly had. When Zimbabwe returned to the Test cricket in 2011, Taibu was selected to play in their one-off test against Bangladesh, Pakistan and New Zealand, despite making critical remarks of the country's cricket administration. He scored half-centuries in each of the 3 tests. Taibu became the 5th Zimbabwean to score 3,000 runs during his innings of 53 against Kenya at Eden Gardens, Kolkata during the 2011 World Cup on the 20th of March 2011. He, along with Stuart Matsikanyeri, set the record partnership in one-day internationals for the 6th wicket for Zimbabwe. Their stand was 188 runs. During his career, Taibu was also the first Zimbabwean to feature in the lucrative Indian Premier League when in 2008 he was drafted by the Kolkata Knight Riders, the IPL franchise, and this was testament to the name that Taibu was building in the game of cricket. On the 10th of July 2012, Taibu called time on his career at the tender age of 29. He said he would only do work for the church. Taibu told a publication called ZiFM, I just feel that my true calling now lies in doing the Lord's work, and although I am fortunate and proud to have played for my country, the time has come for me to put my entire focus on that part of my life. He scored 1,546 runs in tests with 57 catches and 5 stumpings, while making 3,393 runs in one-day internationals with 114 catches and 33 stumpings. He finishes as Zimbabwe's 4th highest run scorer in one-day internationals, with the 2nd most dismissals as a wicketkeeper behind the great and legendary Andy Flower. In 2019, Taibu wrote a book titled Keeper of Faith, in which he discusses socio-political situation in Zimbabwe, his childhood, perceptions about witnessing privileged white cricketers, and the threats to his life. That book, of course, widely available. Now, whether becoming the first black player to break into the senior men's team or becoming the youngest test captain in the nation's history, these 2 feathers in their caps must come second to the undeniable fact that Olonga and Taibu, on their day, were 2 of the finest cricketers produced in this country, no doubt.
Z.
Do not underestimate the power of representation and what it can do for the upcoming generation. A generation of black players were no doubt influenced by Henry Olonga and Tatenda Taibu. It gave them a sense of, if they can do it, I can do it. Olonga has said in interviews that he's fully aware of his responsibility as a role model to the young, as Zimbabwe's first black test cricketer. And he's careful about the lifestyle he lives and how it has to be consistently based in Christian principles. Taibu is more or less the same, and his influence is exemplary as he continues to work with Zimbabwe cricket as they aim to make Zimbabwe a force in world cricket once again. Many players I speak to in the Chevron say that Tatenda Taibu is a really good mentor and is always available to give advice. He's always available to share a word. He's always available to hear them out and show them the way. So know that their influence is still being felt. Now, all right, coming up next is Around the World in 60 with Chris. We'll catch up with the latest in international sports news. And after that, it's our Power Play on a Tuesday, Top Hit Tuesday.
Around around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in Northern Ireland, where Rory McIlroy believes the rescheduled Masters in November will have a different feel, but could also aid his bid to complete the career Grand Slam. The coronavirus pandemic has impacted sport across the globe and has had serious implications in golf, affecting the calendars on both the European Tour and the PGA Tour. 11 European Tour events have now been called off, in addition to the Open being cancelled, while 3 other majors have been rescheduled for the second half of the year. We head over to Australia, where former Wallaby Will Jenier sees a bright future for Tate McDermott, but only if the red scrum half does not have his natural attacking instincts coached out of him. McDermott, widely considered one of the most promising talents in Australian rugby, has been working with Jenier, while the former World Player of the Year nominee is stuck in Brisbane because of the coronavirus pandemic. With 111 caps, the scrum half having retired from Test rugby after last year's World Cup, new Wallabies coach Dave Rennie will be on the lookout for fresh talent to occupy the number 9 shirt when the lockdown ends. We touch down in the USA, where the mother of Minnesota Timberwolves center Karl Anthony Towns, Jacqueline Cruz Towns, passed away yesterday due to complications from the coronavirus after more than a month of fighting. She was 59. The Timberwolves made the announcement via the Towns family, which requested privacy. Karl Towns Sr., the father of the 2-time All-Star player, was also hospitalized with the virus but has since recovered. A native of the Dominican Republic, Jacqueline was a fixture at Timberwolves games from the start of her son's NBA career. Karl Anthony Towns was the first overall pick in the 2015 draft out of Kentucky.
Hi, this is Mike Madura, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z.
You're tuning to ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This is the lockdown edition of ZiFM Sport. Let's keep the interaction going. Their handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. You can reach us directly by searching for our names: Ray Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Paz, Chris, Alois Bunjira, and myself, Sean Tafirenyika. Now let's catch up with what's happening in the world of football in the beautiful game. It's Mike on the continent with the South African Alpha Premiership, Barry with La Liga, Chris with the Premier League, Paz with Serie A, and Alois will round us off with the Bundesliga.
The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Now, with no football being played, there's plenty, of course, that is happening behind the scene, plenty of speculation as to when football will get underway. And it's a big conundrum, not just in the major leagues of Europe, but also in Africa. But the cleverer teams are already looking to the future and starting to plot for when football does finally return. Let's go to South Africa, where former Orlando Pirates captain Lucky Lekwati has sent the names of 2 new signings to Orlando Pirates chairman Irvin Khoza, urging him to bring them on board. With speculation growing about the future of 2 Maritzburg United stars in Richard Ofori and Rushin Diruk, the former Pirates captain has identified them as the missing pieces of the puzzle on the Sea Robbers ship. And of course, Lucky Lekwati believing that the signing of those 2 players could actually help Orlando Pirates challenge for the title in the 2020-2021 season. There's no doubt that it's a 2-way fight this season. Kaizer Chiefs are the favorites. They are leading the race. But just behind them are Mamelodi Sundowns, perennial winners, serial winners. And of course, they'll be looking to their clash versus Orlando Pirates, to their clashes versus Kaizer Chiefs as possibly the games that could decide the fate of this season when action does get underway. Lucky Lekwati, outstanding captain, outstanding defender with Orlando Pirates, knows the team, knows the system, and also knows his way to the office of the Iron Duke, the owner of Orlando Pirates. That is Dr. Irvin Khoza, and he's urging on the Iron Duke to sign those 2 players. 2 decent players, 2 really good players. They're quick, they're direct, and I think they'll add a lot of steel and dynamism to Orlando Pirates. So Orlando Pirates looking to next season. I think this season they're content with perhaps trying to sneak into one of the final 2 places position 1 or 2, which will guarantee Champions League football. If they can't do that, I think third place will suffice. If you take a look at the manner in which they started the season, with Michu resigning, then they had that ill-fated spell with Rolani Mokwena, and it didn't go well. They lost a lot of matches, lost a lot of ground. But when they brought in the new coach, the German, he was able to turn the ship around, and it's been happy sailing since then. So if they can add 2 or 3 quality signings heading into next season, Orlando Pirates will be well placed to challenge for honours.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wanted!
In La Liga, Barcelona have restructured the club's board after 6 directors resigned and are taking legal action against former Vice President Emily Rousseau for claims he made. In a strongly worded letter, Rousseau and fellow Vice President Enrique Tombas announced they were stepping down with 4 other directors, they being Silvio Elias, Maria Tejado, Josep Pont and Jordi Calsamiglia. Their actions have led to Barcelona President Josep Maria Bartomeu remodeling the club's board. He did so through a statement that was worded as such. The board of directors have approved the appointment of Jordi Moy as Vice President for Economics and Equity, Pau Villanova as Institutional Vice President, Oriel Tomas as Vice President of the Commercial Area, Marta Plana as Secretary for the Board of Directors, and David Belve as Treasurer. Javier Bordas will be manager responsible for the football first team, while Xavier Villajoana will be in charge of Barca B, the youth teams and women's football. The executives responsible for the compliance committee will be the secretary of the board, Marta Plana, and the treasurer, David Belve, while Johan Blade, in addition to continuing to being responsible for the basketball teams, will also be responsible for the Control and Transparency Committee. Now, the Spanish champions also intend to take legal action against Rousseau after he said that somebody had been stealing money from within the club. Rousseau made the claims to a Catalan radio station following accusations the club hired a company to make negative comments about its own players and opponents on social media in order to boost the image of senior club officials, while Barcelona strongly deny those allegations. This is just yet another episode of the soap opera that is playing out at Barcelona Football Club and putting club president Josep Maria Bartomeu on the back foot, especially given that there is, of course, elections coming up next year. You just look at the trend that has followed Josep Maria Bartomeu's reign in recent years. There is, of course, that feud between Eric Abidal and Lionel Messi, and it looks like Lionel Messi was winning that war. And then you had the issue of that firm that they allegedly hired to rail their players on social media, and of course opposition as well. And then the most important one probably being that there is a feeling amongst the Barcelona faithful and amongst the Catalans that Barcelona has lost its way. La Masia is not producing at the level that it used to, and also the first team is not performing at the level that is expected of a Barcelona team. The result of all of that is that now Joan Laporta, the former president of Barcelona, has come into the mix, and he's already announced that he's going to participate in next year's presidential elections. Now, you remember that under Joan Laporta, Barca experienced a massive amount of success on and off the field, and then of course there was the magical appointment of Pep Guardiola after he had dismissed Frank Rijkaard. And Pep Guardiola was the essence of the club. He had the culture of the club and managed to deliver upon that through playing beautiful football, which is what is loved in Catalonia. So you got to think to yourself, Bartomeu is certainly behind the 8 ball, but he can survive. And his survival is intended on a few factors. The first one being that he winning La Liga will be great, but he's got to win the Champions League. And even that may not be enough. He might have to, in the close season, if we see football getting back, in the close season, he's going to have to make at least 2 marquee signings. For me, I think he's going to have to complete the signing of Neymar. He's going to have to pay top dollar to PSG and get Neymar back in the club, and then possibly also make another signing. For me, it looks like it's going to be Lautaro Martinez, Argentine teammate to Lionel Messi, who will arrive at the Camp Nou. And then also the cherry on the top that might ensure that he has a successful election next year, possibly at the appointment of a new manager, and that new manager likely to be Xavi. Xavi, widely considered as possibly the new Pep, the new manager who has the Barcelona way within his DNA, because I don't think he'll be able to lure Pep back. Bottom line is, Josep Maria Bartomeu in the fight of his life.
Z. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
A growing number of Premier League clubs believe their games will be played behind closed doors if and when competitive action returns this season. The Premier League's Director of Football, Richard Garlick, along with the league's medical advisor, Mark Gillett, are liaising with clubs on a regular basis on player welfare and what could realistically be expected of players if and when the season resumes.
Z. The Nerazzurri. The Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Velotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of.
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful. The best of Italian football on Z.
We stop off in Serie A, where the Italian Football Federation hopes that players can be tested for coronavirus at the start of May in preparation for the season to restart. Serie A has been suspended since the 9th of March because of the global pandemic. There's no set date for when the campaign can resume in Italy, with 12 full rounds and 4 outstanding fixtures still to play.
Z. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
The Bayern Munich head coach Hansi Flick says he is working on technical skills with his players now that the Bundesliga leaders have resumed training, albeit under strict conditions due to the current coronavirus crisis. Robert Lewandowski and company returned to the pitches at the club's Sabina Strasse headquarters last week, completing drills in small groups while maintaining distance between all players and staff. Yeah. This is quite interesting, but like we know that the coronavirus has wreaked havoc everywhere, sport especially being affected. They have to do it. I'm trying to imagine training, maintaining distance. When you arrive at the training ground, you want to be friendly with your teammates. You want to talk with your friends, with your teammates, hugging, shaking hands, and all that. That brings that team spirit. But with this coronavirus, all that has been taken away. We've spoken about it. It has taken away the friendship, the sportsmanship, the team spirit. You just arrive there and just go about doing your work. It's going to be difficult. But when you listen to what the Bayern Munich coach is trying to do here, we can actually see that he is going for technical drills. Well, obviously, it's because that those are the training sessions that you can actually afford to have training whereby players don't come into contact with each other. There are very limited tactical or formation training that can be done with players apart, except shadow training, where you can actually do your formations, where players are running into space without anyone marking them and all that. That's why we call them shadow training and all that. That can only be done. That's the only tactical training that can be done without. So we have to wait until the Football Association of the World, like FIFA, and the World Health Organization, they will have to come up with a plan on what's the way forward. Until then, these training methods are going to be as technical as they can be, using modern technology. But until when is the question. We'll have to wait until the season start, and we'll see how much coronavirus has impacted on sport. It's going to be very interesting watching football and players distancing themselves, afraid to tackle the other players and all that. We'll wait and see. But sport has been affected tremendously. The Bundesliga, they have started training like we have heard, but for how long and when is the Bundesliga going to start, and how is Bayern Munich going to do it? We will never know until it starts. But let's just wait and see.
Time is never a friend on the show. We gotta go, but we'll be back tomorrow for Wacky Wednesday. We talked about Zimbabwe's most influential cricketers of the modern era. Tomorrow we go international, baby. So don't miss it. Until then, take off yourself and stay safe.